Did you ever feel in danger and medium or low?
It's funny. I had more problems probably at the low than I did the medium, but at the medium, the only thing that happened was an article came out in the newspaper when I was at the medium. It came out and said, because they're still investigating things. So this article comes out, and I'm on the front page of the St. Petersburg Times. It was about the politician. Big article. And in the article, it says they interview Millie, my lawyer, and she says, well, when Mr. Cox was being interviewed by the FBI, one of the first things they wanted to know about was this politician. So she just said Mr. Cox was being interviewed by the FBI. Mm-hmm. So I immediately get taken into custody, and they put me in the shoe, the hole, right, for my own protection. And I'm there for like 45 days. And then after 45 days, they're like, Cox, what do you want us to do? You want us to ship you? I was like, no, put me back on the compound. Mm-hmm. I'm like, half the guys here cooperated. And he goes, yeah, it's more than half. He said, but this is a guy from SIS, which is like their internal security.
So that's when he told you that it's actually a much higher percentage.
Right. He said, he goes, but 90%, he said, but 100% of them are lying about it. He said, you just came out in the newspaper. Yeah. I go, man, I'm not concerned. If you are concerned, you got to come immediately to the lieutenant's office and tell us. We'll ship you. I said, okay. I get out there. People are giving me like looking at me and what's up, but I don't have a lot of friends anyway. And I come there to make friends. And so at one point, this one guy comes to me. I'm walking the yard probably 2 days later. After I get back on the compound, I'm walking. Guy comes to me. He has a goatee, and it comes down here, and he's got a skull, like a little skull thing he'd made, mm-hmm. whittled out of wood or something. And, definitely looks scary. But so I'm walking, and he stopped. He goes, hey, Cox. I've never talked to these guys. I had been there for a year or so and never talked to any of these guys. They're all like bikers and, Aryan Brotherhood. And so, I'm like, yeah, what's up? He said, Bubba's their leader. Mm-hmm. He goes, Bubba told me to tell you not to walk the yard. He don't want to see you out in the yard. Mm-hmm. And I went, okay. I said, well, I'm going to walk the yard tonight. I said, and if I get the shit kicked out of me, then I get the shit kicked out of me.
But did you talk back to a guy with a wooden skull hanging off his beard?
I did, but you know what? Yeah. It was right in front of the guard shack, and so there's guards in the guard shack. Like they're 20 feet away.
Really, you weren't scared?
I mean, I think I just got numb. Like I'm not stupid, but I'm walking around. I was scared from the moment I got there on, if that makes sense. So you get to a point where you're just numb and you're waiting for it. Especially when I got out of the shoe. Got out of the shoe, I went straight to my cell, laid down. A couple minutes later, it was locked down. They closed the doors. I wake up the next morning. I go to chow. I go to my job. Like it starts all over again. Mm-hmm. So I had a very packed routine. So I didn't spend there, although there's guys everywhere. And I'm thinking at some point I might just be walking around. A guy might walk up and just smash me in the head. But it didn't happen. And it's not the guys aren't getting stabbed, but they've got it coming. I didn't tell on anybody here. I didn't do anything. It's not that on other yards I might not have gotten smashed, but I didn't get smashed. And I'd been there a while, and I taught the real estate class, and everybody wanted to take real estate. Mm-hmm. So I think that insulated me to a degree. I also had made a few friends there, and I think they were probably also kind of putting out the words like, bro, cut this guy a break. Mm-hmm. So I'm walking across, and I tell the guy, I said, look, man, I said, and I wasn't rude to him. He wasn't even rude to me, really. He said, don't walk the yard anymore. Bubba, I didn't want you walking the yard. I said, well, listen, I'm going to go to chow, and then I'm going to go out there tonight and walk the yard. And if I get smashed, I get smashed. I go, because I got 26 years, and I cannot walk around for the next 26 years not going on the yard. I said, so I'm going to be there, and if that happens, then that happens. And he looked at me, and he goes, man, I don't give a fuck what you do. That's what Bubba told me to tell you. He said, I told you. And he goes, I don't give a shit what you do. And he walked off. I went out there that night with a buddy of mine named Zach. A guy named John Gordon, with my cousin and a couple of his buddies. We walked the track for about an hour. Bubba and a group of his guys stood there and looked at us. And as we walked, probably closest we got to him was 30 or 40 feet. Mm-hmm. That went on for 30 minutes. And then they kind of broke up and went their separate ways. And, there was a couple of times where I would go to the chow hall, and I would go and I'd be sitting at a table, and Bubba would walk up and tell the other guys at the table, I want to let you guys know he didn't even call me a snitch. He said, you're sitting with a cooperating witness. He said, if that's how you want to roll, he said, you ain't going to be rolling with us if there's any trouble. And then they all kind of looked at me and they got their plate and they moved off. He didn't tell me to move. Mm-hmm. And he could have walked up and said, this is a snitch motherfucker. He didn't do that. Mm-hmm. Bubba was very respectful. So as respectful as he could be.
Whatever you want to say about Bubba,
right.
He was a respectful man. You ever talk to him directly?
Never had a conversation with him. So that went on. But I mean, not, when I say that went on, I mean like literally like that's a couple of times. Mm-hmm. He said the same thing to a guy in line one time. Guy came up to me later and said, look, man, I'm sorry, man. He was standing next to me in line. Bubba said something to him. He went like 10 or 15 people back and stood in line. Later on, he came up to me, man, I'm sorry, bro, but Bubba, I said, bro, look, I get it. We're not friends. Don't worry about it. And here's the thing.